Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. We have an interesting agenda, I think. I think you're going to enjoy it. My name is Pete Salerno. I'm the program manager for the Hack Chicago Challenge 2014 from IEEE. It's being hosted by the IEEE Chicago section and the IEEE Computer Society Special Technology Committee on e-Government. We have some sponsors. I'll be talking about them later. But I just want to give you a little overview of the agenda tonight. So before I do that, though, I'd like to call up the rest of the committee. Danny Gonzalez. Danny's, and the committee, basically, we have committee titles, but everyone just kind of works on everything. Joe? And here's Chris. Okay, great. So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce Vicki Peters here in a minute, and then she's going to give you a little welcome. We're going to go through contest orientation, so basically just the background of it, how it's going to run. Then we have Bob Perro. He's the Region 4 Director-elect. He's going to give our keynote, talk about what the IEEE is doing. Then we have Tom Schenk from the City of Chicago, and he's one of the key persons in getting us started with this. We're making use of his data, well, the city's data, but Tom's given us the idea. And then we're going to wrap it up with Chris Whitaker. He's the Code for America, and he does Chicago Hack Nights every Tuesday night in 1871. So, you guys can take the ideas for your apps and combine it with going to the Hack Night with Chris, and really get some help from other programmers there. So, Vicki Peters. Vicki is Chicago Section Chair and Executive Committee Board of Directors. And welcome.
Good evening, and welcome to the IEEE 2014 Chicago Hackathon Kickoff. Most Oscar and Emmy Award-winning actors always open their speeches with three famous words: I thank God. Well, I'm going to follow suit on a more serious note and say that I truly thank God for such a wonderful opportunity. I honestly do not believe this would be possible without his guidance and direction. As adults, parents, and educators, we always teach our kids that we live in a democracy, that we have influence and a say with our government. But it's not enough just to say these words. Rather, we should lead by example. I can think of no better way than the IEEE 2014 Chicago Hackathon. For you see, it not only invokes critical thinking on all levels, but it's a chance for the participants to interact in a small way with our local government, the City of Chicago, on a collaborative initiative. On behalf of the IEEE Chicago section and the Chicago Board of Directors, thank you, Tom Schenk and the City of Chicago, and special thanks to Ron Biederman of Google Government Relations for both of your contributions to this initiative. I would also like to recognize a longtime friend whom I've known for many years and have the pleasure of working with from time to time, the Honorary Consul General of the United States for the Comoros, Mr. Sharif Hashim, and his family for attending. Finally, I would like to thank our IEEE Region 4 Director, Karen Pedersen, who is unable to attend, for her support and encouragement. Let's shift now to the subject of leadership. A good leader does not always have to be at the forefront of everything. Rather, he or she reviews an opportunity, evaluates it, and then carefully selects the individual or individuals that can get the task done on time and on target. IEEE maintains the stance that we're engineers without borders. When Carlos Jimenez, chair of the IEEE Computer Society e-Government, visited the U.S. in June of this year, 2014, from Spain, one of the countries included in Region 8 that consists of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. He met with key officials of the city of Chicago regarding specific possibilities of collaborating in the e-government field. Just think, local actions for a global view coming all the way from Spain. Talk about no borders. Therefore, when the opportunity was presented by Carlos to the IEEE Chicago section as a worldwide government initiative, I thought, gee, why not Chicago? Why not lead this initiative and make a notable difference? Hence, the IEEE 2014 Hack Chicago project was formed. Then, I handpicked the chair and project manager of the standing committee, Mr. Peter Salerno. Now, I've watched Peter for a long time, unbeknownst to him, and I observed him very carefully at various IEEE functions and felt confident that if anyone could pull this together, he could. But not only did Peter build a team, he also worked from scratch, from the bottom up. They all did. Well done, Peter. Well done, Peter. Once I entrusted Peter with the project, I gave it to him and let it go. As I told him, do your thing. And I stood back and I watched him work. I do not condone micromanagement. If, as a leader, one must micromanage, then obviously the wrong person was selected to handle a task, especially of this magnitude. Where then is the leadership? And finally, on the subject of leadership, I would not be here in my capacity as chair of one of the largest sections in the IEEE Midwest region had it not been for my mentor, Robert Burke, or more commonly referred to as Mr. IEEE. Bob found me when I had just barely graduated from grad school and asked if I would be chair of an affinity group, the Women in Engineering, or as we call it, WE, W-I-E. I said yes. Little did I know, or he, for that matter, that now here I would stand. Bob, please stand up and take a bow. I extend my thanks to you. Having said this, I vow to give back by empowering and encouraging others to reach their maximum potential. But there's a new concept now other than mentor. It is the concept of champion. We, as learned adults and seasoned professionals, have the task of helping our youth of today, for they're our future. Being a champion to them means establishing and cultivating a relationship and then pushing that envelope to influential people that make decisions in order to help those who would not have otherwise had an opportunity to showcase their talents. I began my speech on a Hollywood note, and so I shall end on another famous Hollywood sentiment. To the participants of the Chicago Hackathon, the Chicago team, break a leg. And speaking of champions, I would like to introduce our Region 4 Director-elect, Mr. Bob Harrell.
All right, so we're going to switch a little bit here. Bob's going to speak, and we will come back to
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Peter? So what I'd like to do is present an overview of IEEE for those of you who may not be familiar with what IEEE is all about. I am the Region 4 Director-elect. I'm on the Board of Directors. And the mission of the IEEE is to advance technology for the benefit of humanity. So we're going to dive into that mission a little bit. And so as you think about innovation and what adds to innovation, what increases innovation, technology is a significant component of what drives innovation. And so as technology enables more innovation, it enables people to do more. And so the graphic there, so we actually translated from a PowerPoint in Windows to an open format in Mac, and so everything didn't transfer. But the point of the graphic is that technology drives increasing innovation, and that actually drives or enables increased quality of life, which didn't actually translate there. So IEEE is actually, it stands for Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, but it doesn't strictly focus on electrical and electronics issues. It actually cross-pollinates ideas from a wide swath of technology areas. And so, there's an example there of a list of some of the key areas. So from aerospace to biomedical engineering to cloud computing to information technology to renewable energy and to a smart electric grid, it actually covers a very, very wide swath. So a little bit about our history of IEEE. We have been around for 125 years, and we have had some impressive luminaries that have been a part of IEEE. So IEEE is actually the product of the merger of two other professional engineering organizations. One is the American Institute of Electrical Engineers back in 1884 when it was formed, and they had luminaries such as Thomas Edison, Alexander Bell, and other equally notable people that participated. Okay, a little animation there. Okay, well, anyway, what was supposed to happen there was that in 1912, the American Institute for Radio, AIR, was formed, and then those two groups came together to form the IEEE in 1963. And so moving forward to present day, so we have over 430,000 members globally. We have 45 technical societies and councils. We operate in more than 190 countries. We put on more than 1,300 conferences annually. We have over 3 million technical documents that are available for members and non-members. And we have quite a number of periodicals that are often cited from a technical standpoint. So IEEE is divided into 10 regions globally. Regions 1 through 6 essentially is the United States, and we have about half the members reside in regions 1 through 6. And then the other half are distributed around the world in the other 4 regions, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in the U.S., as I said, we're regions 1 through 6, and Chicago section is in the green area, the north central region. It's called Region 4, and the Chicago section is the largest section in the region, and it is our flagship section. So we're quite proud of Chicago and what they accomplish. We try to support them from the region level. So how does IEEE have impact on society? People that aren't familiar with product development activities and building and construction and really many aspects of life are not aware of how important standards are and how standards drive all of that activity. It's so fundamentally important. And so IEEE is actually a standards organization, and they have created and maintained 4,400 different standards. A lot of the standards have to do with safety, and give you some example of some of the standards that you are probably familiar with, but sort of probably not aware that they're IEEE related standards. So wireless connectivity to the internet. Wi-Fi is IEEE 802.11 is a standard, and the Bluetooth standard allows you to wirelessly communicate from your headset to your cell phone, or from your cell phone to your car. That's the IEEE 802.15 standard, and others. And there's a lot of them that you'd be surprised, just in the operation of a computer. There's a lot of standards that go into making that happen. And many of those standards are IEEE. I mentioned the conferences, and a lot of these conferences deliver cutting-edge research. Again, there's over 1,300 of them, and so there's a lot of progress in terms of moving research and ideas forward at conferences. Publications, I mentioned we have over 3 million technical publications, and also periodicals. Our periodicals are among the top cited periodicals of all technical periodicals. And out of the top 20 periodicals in the electrical engineering field, IEEE publishes 18 out of those 20. In terms of patent citations, IEEE is the most cited, in fact, or the most cited by 3 times, more than any other references. IEEE is involved in the open access movement, so that an increasingly large amount of IEEE technical content, in terms of their papers and publications, are available at no charge. How does IEEE contribute to benefiting society on a global basis? So very involved in emerging technologies. Some examples are cloud computing, renewable energy, wireless communications, the smart electric grid, and we actually put on quite a few conferences that are related to these topics, again, and it moves the ball forward. And we do have a global outreach, so just a second. So we have a global outreach, but we try to understand local needs, but on a global basis. So that's a big part of what IEEE is all about. And then in parting, I'd like to show a short video. It's called IEEE Solutionists.
our sponsors, Rob Biederman with Frugal. Without Rob's early and enthusiastic entrance into it, I don't think we could have pulled off the event. I think he was really helped us a lot, providing the food for us, as well as the prize, helping increase the prize and giving us some operating space. So that's really important, and I really appreciate that. Andrea, you still here? Or? Yeah, okay. So Andrea Winter, she with Motorola Mobility, giving us this beautiful space to have our kickoff event. It's been fabulous. We have Innovate Tech is here. On the website, we talk about the purpose of it. Really what it is government, City of Chicago makes data available in the hopes that people will make use of it. If people don't make use of it, then it goes away. But it's a cycle, right? If people do make use of it and make good use of it, and positive use, then more data becomes available, more ideas, and it's a cycle, and it just builds. So, making the hackathon is really to encourage this openness, and it creates more transparency from the government. So it's all about what the U.S. is about, and our what we hope that the world can see. Making things available and making use of that availability back and forth. It's a cooperative, active society. So that's kind of what we're looking at. The requirements for the contest is just a friendly, convenient app, right? It's got to enhance something in the Chicago, services in the Chicagoland area, enrich something for people that come to visit, or business people that are here, or people just that live here. So that's kind of the quality part of what we're looking at. And what we want to do is we want to encourage the use of data coming from the city, which is why we put in the requirement to use the data portal that the city makes available to us. And Tom's going to talk to us in more detail about that. So registration is open now. So you can sign up. You go to the website, click on it, and sign up. We'll give you an app ID that will track you through. And then submit your apps when you're ready, all the way up through midnight, October 15th. We will start popular voting. There'll be an SMS application, it's already available. You can see a sample of the data. But basically, all you do is you just SMS the app ID, and there's 3 categories, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But you can vote for each category. You just SMS an app ID for each of the categories, and it will tabulate and get recorded on the screen. You'll be able to see live results just by going to the web page. After that's done, we have a set of judges. We haven't announced who they are, but we'll be announcing them shortly. We have a great set of judges who will take the top apps and judge them based against the criteria that we've set up for 100 points. And we'll have first, second, and third winners in each of the 3 categories. And those winners will be announced at an awards ceremony that the Chicago section is hosting, a symposium at Motorola Solutions in Schaumburg. That'll be on November 6th. So it's a short cycle, but I think we should get some really good results. So that brings me back to the agenda, and I'd like to introduce Tom Schenk.
Roger? Okay.
Okay, who do you want?
I can see it from here.
Okay.
All right, so I'll talk to divert the fact I'm dealing with a computer in front of my face right now. So my name is Tom. I'm the Director of Analytics and Chief Data Officer for the City of Chicago. I'm the Director of Analytics and Chief Data Officer for the City of Chicago, and so our work that we're trying to do is to treat data as a strategic asset. All right? And data as a strategic asset means a few things. One, we want to make it available and get people to look at it. And that means people within the City of Chicago being able to look at the data. And that's a big deal. Any organization, any large organization where it's 33,000 people, for everybody to be able to see data is not always taken for granted. All right. So then the next thing that we need to do, not only be able to make it available to ourselves, but we need to make it available to the public. Because quite honestly, it's data that you paid for. It represents work that's being done in the City of Chicago. It's representing the street truck that you found in front of your house today when you walked out. It's the garbage truck in the back. It's the trash that's being picked up. It's the plows that are being snowed. It's the electricity that's being consumed on a regular basis. So that data represents what is happening around us. And our final use case for it, something that we love to talk about a lot, is using that data for analytics, advanced analytics. And that's what our advanced analytics, predictive analytics team does, is to take that data. Much of that data is available online, and use it to improve the efficiency of city operations, to improve the quality of life of its residents. And a couple examples I'm going to show to you. If I remember the Fibonacci sequence in my head. The examples I'm going to show to you, some of the things that we've been able to do has been purely from the data portal. We've done research projects where we predict things, predict substantial things, and we realized, you know what, that entire set of data was online. We were able to have simply, anybody else could have come along and do things. So certainly there's been examples where people have done interesting things in the past. And there's certainly examples where we've even discovered that we've released all the information that's necessary to do projects. And the way that we release information, the way that we release information is often through the data portal. So I'm going to go to a website, data.cityofchicago.org. This is the so-called data portal for the City of Chicago. So we have this here. This is the main site for it. Zoom in there. And there's over 600 data sets on the portal. Many of these things are automatically updated on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you one example of a data set that is most frequently cited that came out a couple years ago. It's every single crime in the City of Chicago from 2001 to a trailing 1 week. So from 1 week today. Tomorrow will be 1 week from that day as well. There's over 5 million rows, over 5 million records in this particular data set, which contains the crime itself, a block reduced address, the time, the dates of it, in this case, 9/23 at 11:55 p.m. The type, and these are all codified as well, so which is often important. The type and the description of theft of under $500, where it occurred, if there's been arrest, if it was a domestic incident, and a masked latitude and longitude. So it's mappable, it's usable in many different ways. This is a serious and often grim topic, but an important one that is in the City of Chicago. One of my favorite data sets that we just released, where crimes data is voluminous, over 5 million records. Another one of my favorite data sets is beach quality. So we pull from the sensors every single hour, sensors that are in the water throughout all Chicago's beaches. Water quality, water temperature, turbidity, you can Wikipedia to figure out what that is, but water clarity. The wave height, the wave distance. So if the water is warm, you went to a warm day on the beach, you can actually go and see what happens. And then again, this pulls out every single hour, and we have a record of that across all of the beaches. And you can pull that information. That's something that's coming in fairly regularly, not real time, every hour. So where crime, again, goes back a long ways and goes deep into that particular topic, here we're able to just take a look at something as simple as, is the beach nice to go to today? The best way to navigate through is to search, of course, to search for words. And so if you want something that is more real time, that has more of that real time flavor, the traffic tracker data. Each one of our things, and when you talk about smart cities, a lot of people talk about sensors. And it's interesting to think about sometimes what sensors, I just described a sensor. The sensors that are literally sensors in the water. That's floating in the water. You can actually see how deep those sensors are, by the way, in that data set. It reports out how deep it is in the water. But this is another interesting use of sensors where we use the city's buses. Our city's buses have GPS units. It's what dings to say that we're coming up on the next stop. But in this, we're using it to track how heavy is congestion throughout Chicago streets. If you think about it, all the buses are on the major thoroughfares throughout the city of Chicago. The main ways that you're going to get through, there's likely a bus. And so we use this. We use this information to determine, based on how fast those buses are going, compared to its average speed, how congested is traffic. If the buses are moving slow, traffic is likely congestion. And we post this information every 10 minutes on the data set that you see behind you. And it's certainly accessible, and a big movement around open data, around making data publicly available. It's not posted in PDFs. I would actually be amused posting this in PDF every 15 minutes. But it's posted in human and also machine-readable form. So certainly what you can do with this is you can export that data. You click the export button, you get the normal things you typically see. CSV, JSON, even PDF, RSS, Excel, of a variety of different forms. But for the programmers, and especially for app developers, it's available through an API, an endpoint that can turn back JSON, and a single endpoint that you can just simply refer to at any given time. So this is the API, the RESTful API format that you see. It's how we post things. It's how we keep things automated. We make API calls to post things, and we hope people are making API calls to pull things. And then lastly, as I alluded to earlier, Chicago is one of the only cities that do this. I really do think that this is a data set that is so far underutilized. This is energy consumption by census block, by month, by energy type, by building type throughout the city of Chicago. If you're in a multifamily home that has over 7 people, so this would be an apartment complex, and you're at this census block in Albany Park, residential apartments in Albany Park, you can tell that you consume 11,921 kilowatts of energy in January 2010. We also summarize some of the attributes of those locations. So you can see how many people live there, typically, how many occupied housing units there are, the average household size, in this case 2.2 people per household. It's a 65-year-old building, 3 stories high, typically. Total of 64 units, I think I see that. And you get to see how much consumption, in this case, therms per square foot. What is the maximum therms consumption per square foot in the census block? This is extremely detailed information. It can be used in a lot of different ways. Obviously, there's energy efficiency. But there's also ways to be able to respond to need. One of the problems that always goes undetected, especially coming from the city's perspective, and maybe others, is it's a hot summer day. We haven't had one of those in a couple years. But we used to have these things called hot summer days. There used to be 3 digits in the temperature. And when that would happen, people would get locked in, electricity might cut out, and serious things would happen, such as electricity going out and air conditioning going out, where somebody elderly, sick, or otherwise impaired has to suffer through that. And in extreme cases, that would obviously lead to fatalities. So could we use information like this in its extreme detail to try to pick out what are the areas that have in-unit air conditioners as opposed to central air, which tends to be more reliable and tend not to have issues. But that central air unit, or the in-window unit, is more likely to cause problems. But there's also more fun things that can be used. Practical things. I mean, imagine living in the city today without the technology we have access to. Not having to wait, when is the bus coming? We can get those answers right now. That's a different way to be able to pull up Google Maps. It's completely shaped how we've interacted. No more asking for directions. Now, how would you have gotten around in the city in the 80s? Well, ask for directions. You talk to people. Now you don't have to. Is the bus coming? Well, yes, it's coming in 8 minutes because that's what my app says and that's probably right. And you walk out and you ask, was my car towed? Well, there's a website for that as well. This is feeding off the data portal. There's a data set on there to show you the actual raw data. And you enter a license plate number, and it simply tells you whether or not your car was towed. So was my car stolen or was my car towed? Well, you can at least answer one of them. And maybe deduce down to if your car was, or induce to whether or not your car was stolen.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does it tell you where your car is?
Yes. Yes.
I was spent like 2 hours at night, but I just finding my car very simple.
Check out that website. So towed and relocated vehicles, I'll pull it up because there's a couple of stories and questions around it. But again, simply search for towed. You can pull up towed vehicles. And you can see the raw data that feeds it. It's just a search mechanism that he has. But the tow date, the make, the model of the car, the inventory. And where is towed to? On our third block of South Dottie. And then other convenience, such as sweep around us. Enter your address and you get text message alerts of whether or not your car's, whether or not there's going to be street sweeping on a particular evening. Again, conveniences. So there's gravity of serious topics. There's conveniences such as sweep around us. And then there's exploratory and analytics that you can engage, such as using the energy data set. And there's a lot of cases where we have used research, and indeed we've predicted a number of things throughout the state of Chicago using data. And one of the stories I find most interesting is we set out with a project, one of my most favorite pet projects, to see what can we do about food inspections. There's over 15,000 restaurant establishments throughout the city of Chicago, 15,000, of which all have to be inspected by 32 inspectors. So the problem is natural. It's a queuing theory problem. You have more work than actual labor that can be done. Naturally, what makes sense is to do a sort order to go to the places of high priority first. And we have a bunch of data. We have the food inspections. We actually post them to the portal. And we have other data about the communities, about the neighborhoods, about the restaurants, about the businesses. And so we sought out, can we predict where critical food violations would be? And in the end, we settled on 12 different predictors that did a pretty good job of predicting, led to a 25% increase in our rate of finding critical food violations. 25% off of 2 months worth of work, of research work. And then we were looking at the variables and we realized every single one of the variables, from sanitation code complaints to garbage complaints to everything else, was on the portal. Anybody else could have come along and made the same discovery that we dedicated work to. Led to a 25% increase in productivity in 2 months worth of work. So certainly what I'm trying to say is that there's pertinent data that actually matters on a day-to-day basis, but there's actually enough abundance of data to do something meaningful with it. It's not a data set and trying to make something out of one thing, which can be very hard, lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps like that. But there's enough diverse set of data where you can actually link it to be meaningful. Link it so you can do something with it. And this is the point of the data portal. Originally started off around transparency, to provide insight. Then there's discussions about improving commerce. Every single week there's hack nights. Every single weekend there seems to be some sort of hackathon. And throughout the United States, we're actually quite notable in terms of Chicago, in terms of how engaged our civic development community is. And it's been interesting to see how it turns from simply transparency to allowing citizens to hack their city, to make it a little bit better, to apply their local knowledge, to apply what people know in this very well-educated city with fine academic institutions, to be able to apply it to your own city. Because I know one thing that engineers, analysts, economists, sociologists, computer scientists all love is making an impact. And this is a great way to make an impact. And we've seen impact being made before. We see these apps take off, where we might be able to do something new, unique, that makes not things necessarily easier for me, not necessarily easier for anybody else, but maybe for yourself, maybe your neighbor, maybe your friends, maybe some guy you don't know. And that's what's compelling, that's what's interesting, and I hope we're able to do something like that over the course of this event. So that's all I have for prepared remarks today. Thanks for bearing with the small computer stuff, but Peter, is that it? All right.
I'd like to just thank Tom and Chris both. We're actually in San Francisco, was it, last week? Code for America had a big meeting, and Chicago is well represented there, and both of these guys they just got off of a long trip. So I appreciate their coming here tonight and speaking for us. So, Chris.
Hello. My name is Christopher Whitaker. I am the Code for America Regional Brigade Coordinator for Code for America. I also run a civic technology consulting firm here in Chicago, where I do a lot of work for an organization called the Smart Chicago Collaborative. The Smart Chicago Collaborative is a nonprofit organization in Chicago that cares about digital access, digital skills, and having things that are worth going onto the internet for. So this is Civic Hacking 101. And before I always start this talk, I always want to ask, how many people here are coders? Okay, a lot of you. Okay, this is going to get a little bit awkward because I do not code. I don't know Ruby, I don't know Rails. If you let me into your production branch on GitHub, I will throw everything into chaos. I got into civic technology kind of from the opposite direction. So in 2008, the bottom had dropped out of the economy, banks were failing, Wall Street was panicking, unemployment was shooting through the roof, and things were not good. And almost in an act of desperation, the state of Illinois hired me to work in a field office for the Illinois Department of Employment Security on Chicago's north side. So I walked to work the first day, sort of dropped my jaw at the hundreds of people that are already lined up to get services even before they opened, get to my desk for the first time, turn on my machine, and I'll wait about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Because the computer's from 1995, it's got the monitor that is larger than your head. It took a little while to warm up. Finally get the system up that I am supposed to use to help my friends and neighbors with their unemployment claims, and I am greeted with a DOS screen. It's got green text that sort of blinks at you. Come to find out, this system was built in 1975 and is not a real-time system. So as I go out the day, I'm entering stuff in, I'm fixing problems, I'm entering claims, I'm making sure, I'm telling people they're going to get their unemployment check. I have no idea if any of this is going through. The only way to tell if what I did actually went through is to come in the next morning, print out a ream of paper about this thick, and go through line by line by line, and check to see if anything rejected. Because if I fix the problem by entering in a certain thing, and you fix the problem by entering the exact same thing, the computer looks at it and goes, oh, these things are duplicates. What do I do? I'll just throw them both out. Completely rejects, and unless I check through all the reams of paper, I have no idea your thing didn't work until you come into the office a week later, very, very angry. So I get frustrated at this because I'm carrying this thing around in my pocket. Something that's infinitely more powerful than the system I use to help my friends and neighbors, and I'm using this to watch cat videos. So I sort of out of desperation, I started going to hackathons at technology events and urban geek drinks because I wanted to help leverage the power of technology to help me do my job better. Because if I'm supposed to be helping the public, I want the best tools and apps and systems possible. Because, I can watch cat videos on anything these days. So I started going to these events, and the first thing I realized is, there's a lot of people talking Ruby and Python, and why are you talking about jewelry and snakes? I thought this was a tech hackathon. So eventually I learned that these were coding languages, and got involved with Code for America. Code for America is a nonprofit organization that works with cities to leverage the power of technologies to make government work for all of us. They did a fellowship year here in Chicago, They sent about a team of 5 extremely bright and talented people to help implement the Open 311 system here in Chicago. And so when you're walking down the street, you see a piece of graffiti, you take a picture of it and report it to that into the city using your phone. That's the Open 311 system that Code for America helped build. About the same time, Derek Eater of DataMade, myself, and Juan Pablo Velez started the Open Gov Hack Night at 1871. We meet every Tuesday at 6 p.m., same bat time, same bat channel, and we gather together web developers, designers, government employees, nonprofit employees, activists, and we all come together to sort of brainstorm how we can leverage technology to make our cities better. So about a year and a half ago, Derek and I got to talking and figured that there ought to be an orientation class. It's sort of a, here's all the jargon, here's all the lingo, here's the way this works, so that when we get new people coming into Hack Night, they aren't wondering, why are we talking about jewelry and snakes? So I always like to start with the data portal, which we've already gone over, so this is going to be the abridged version. But it used to be that to find out anything from the city, you either had to, call the city up, wait on hold some more, and finally get through to a person, you'd ask a question, and hopefully you'd get a response. So for flu shots, every year during flu shot season, the city gives out thousands of free flu shots. But because they want to hit all the neighborhoods, they bounce around the neighborhoods a lot. And so in order to find out where, you pretty much have to call. So in order to get this information, it's sort of you're on call for a while or you're having to wait in line at City Hall. To find out information that's a little more tricky, sometimes you have to fill out what's called a Freedom of Information Act request. And this is a piece of paper that you give to the city that says, I want this piece of information. Sometimes they just give it to you right away. Sometimes in the past, not so much now, they would just wait and wait. And if they really didn't like you, you could wait years to get the information that you wanted. And then when you did get the information, it was either, they gave you a CD-ROM with a bunch of Excel files on it, or worst case scenario, they give you a PDF, which you have to then have the PDF on one screen, you're on your other screen, you're typing in what's on the PDF in order to get into your Excel file so you could actually do something with the data. Not the easiest thing to do. So when Raul Emanuel came into office, he instituted an open data policy that said almost all the data that the city's producing should be online, available for free. So they hired a very talented team to do this, including Tom Schenk. And now all of this stuff is on the data portal, all right here, which is fantastic. But as you kind of notice, this is a giant spreadsheet in the sky. Kind of inside baseball. You kind of have to know about it before you can really access it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to access and understand. So the Chicago Department of Public Health was one of the first city agencies to sort of jump into civic hacking full force. They said, we have all these flu shot locations. Right now it's just a static thing on our website that we put the information out, but we really want people to get flu shots, so we would love a way to make it easier for people to find a flu shot. And so they created this. So this is the Chicago Flu Shot app. You put in your address, and it will show you all the places where you can get a flu shot around you, including the places where you can get it for free. It also works on phones. The city loved this, they adopted it, Smart Chicago Collaborative hosted it, and everybody's wins. This is civic hacking in a nutshell. It's taking open government data released by the city, the state, and the county, and using it in a way to either help educate about a civic issue or to solve a civic problem. There are now about hundreds of apps that do something similar to that. Apps to find, what zone you're in. Apps to find out where to vote. Apps that sort of help explain how CPS determines where your child is going to go to school, because it is much more complicated than it sounds. And they all run basically on the concept of open data as fuel. So the other thing that you'll hear about in civic innovation circles and at civic hackathons is the concept of open source. So if you remember in school when you took tests, you had to look at your own paper. Couldn't look at anybody else's paper, couldn't ask any questions, couldn't get help, because if you did, the teacher would come by, tear your paper up, and you'd fail the class. That's closed source. Open source is different. And the reason why we care so much about open source software is that if we're making apps that are supposed to help cities, we don't want that just to help our city. We want to help all cities. So a couple of weeks after Tom created the Chicago Flu Shot app, I got a call from my counterpart in Boston, Harlan Weber. Harlan Weber is the Code for America Brigade captain out of Boston. And he shot me an email that basically said, hey look, a couple of weeks ago you were talking about this flu shot app. Well, our mayor has just declared a public health emergency because the flu had gotten so bad in the city of Boston. We'd really like to use your flu shot app. So because it was open source, I said, no problem. I introduced him to Tom, I showed him the repository, and then they used a powerful feature on GitHub called a fork. So if you think about a family tree, you have mom and dad, son, the daughter, that form forks of the family tree. Same thing with GitHub. So the city of Boston looked at it, created the city of Boston fork, and in less than 36 hours, they had their own version of the flu shot app out to the public, helping the people of Boston find out where to get flu shots. That's why we love open source so much, because it allows us to work very collaboratively. The other very powerful feature about GitHub is called a pull request. So when the city of Boston got a hold of the app, the city of Boston goes, there's some things we can help out with. I went back to Tom and said, hey Tom, we made some improvements, we think you'll like them. So he goes, oh, this is awesome. He pulls it into the app, and all of a sudden the work that Boston does helps improve Chicago's app. The OpenGov Hack Nights work very much the same way. You'll have Derek producing a project, then you'll have Forrest making an improvement that pulls into the project, and everyone works very collaboratively, not just here in Chicago, but across the country.